What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be installing QA1 double adjustable coilovers on my 2005 Silverado, and I'm just going to give you guys a quick walk around how everything looks right now. Okay, so you will be needing Permatex anti-seize lubricant. They stated so I guess you don't void the warranty and you don't have issues with your adjusting the spring when you're adjusting the springs. So when you order the kit, you're gonna basically come with these three, unless you order the thrust bearing kit. I didn't have the option to order it, so I didn't get it. So basically what you're gonna install first is this one right here, and you're gonna install it with this little notch facing upwards. So you're gonna slide it all the way down. Be followed by this guy right here, and this is gonna be facing up like this. Okay, now you're gonna want to get this washer right here and lubricate one side, and then you're gonna place the washer down in here on top of the column. So you're gonna coat it with your Permatex. As you can see, I coated the bottom but not the top, and then you're just gonna want to slide it right over. And you might want to get a rag because this stuff does get everywhere, and clean it up. So it's gonna sit like that. And now you're gonna want to lube up the threads of the coil or the spring, or I guess you can call it the shock. So you're just gonna want to lube it up to prevent seizing. And once you're done with that, you're basically done assembling it. You just need to get your spring, slide it over. So you're gonna slide it over as shown. And basically now what you're gonna do is just, once you disassemble, you're gonna slide this on with this bushing right here. So you're gonna install the washer and the bushing, and once you install it, you're gonna install this next bushing, followed by the last washer, followed by your regular nut right here, and then once you tighten everything down, you're gonna install your locking nut, which is a thinner one. And I think they send you 2 extra bushings just to, if one of them gets worn out, you can replace them. Okay, so first things first, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take off this ABS line right here, and it's being held on with the zip tie and these clips up here. So I'm gonna disconnect that and get it out the way, and I'm also gonna loosen the brake line up here and up here, and then I'm gonna move the brake line out the way. And then after that, I'm gonna start off with the sway bars. I'm gonna loosen that all the way and get rid of it. That way it gives me some more space. Okay, so as you can see, I have removed the sway bar and loosened all these brake lines and the ABS lines. See how they're all loose? So next, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull those little cotter pins out of the tie rod end, and then I'm gonna pull the tie rod, take that out, and then once that's out, I'm gonna remove this caliper with the bracket and everything complete, and I'm gonna hang it down here. It gives me enough line space, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue of it hanging so bad. Okay, as you see now, I have the caliper down. So yeah, you see how it's not too much pressure on the line at all, so it should be fine just sitting down there. I got this out already. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna loosen that upper ball joint as well as the lower ball joint. I think, yeah, this one has a cotter pin too. So I'm gonna loosen those. I'm not gonna take the bolt out of the way. I'm just gonna loosen it and then pop it loose. That way it doesn't completely fall to the floor. Okay, so as you can see, I've already loosened the ball joint and popped it out of its place. I loosened the bottom one, but I am having a little bit of difficulty popping it out of place, so I'm gonna drop the lower control arm complete with the spindle with it, and the spring should still come right out. So next, what I'm gonna do is, before I release any tension on the lower control arm, I'm gonna just loosen them ever so slightly to give me some play in them. So on each side, I'm gonna loosen those. And then after I loosen those, I'm gonna install a jack under here to hold the tension of the lower control arm. And I'm gonna loosen the 2 shock bolts. Yeah, you have to be really careful when you mess with these springs because they can come out and hurt you really bad. So I like to leave this control arm here. I don't like taking it off just in case something were to happen. It'll jump out and maybe hopefully get stopped on the sway bar or the upper control arm. I also like to leave this shock in here instead of taking it out from the start. Again, if something were to happen, it would bounce around and that would take some tension away from it. Okay, as you can see, I did have to loosen the top one ever so slightly once I jacked it up. It had some tension on it. So as you can see, I positioned it so it's not in line with the lower control arm. Okay, so as you can see, I loosened the bottom shock bolts and I have a jack under it to hold the tension so the lower control arm doesn't fall down. I did have to loosen the top bolt ever so slightly, and I put the shock vertically, as you can see, so when the control arm loosens, the shock doesn't get caught on it. Those back bolts are already loose, and this is loose. I couldn't get this out, so it's gonna come down with the lower control arm and spindle. So yeah, you wanna loosen, I'm gonna loosen from back there, and you wanna like not be in the way just in case something were to happen, you're not in the way of it. But you have to be really careful when you do this. I will try to give you guys a view how it comes down. Okay, so as you can see, the spring is now out of its place. It's caught right there. There you go. Okay. Yeah, so it's a little scary, but as long as you're careful, you shouldn't have to worry too much. So I am going to be replacing this control arm. It clunks. It clunks a lot when I go over bumps, and these bushings back here are really wasted. Alright, so as you can see, I've got everything off already. So what you have to do with this new kit is, let's bring the old one right here. So So as you see, they have these welded nuts on there. So with the new kit, you have to delete those welded nuts. As you can see, I got rid of mine already. What I used was I went to AutoZone and I purchased an air hammer. Let's see, where did I leave it? That's right. So I went and purchased this Vapor air hammer right here. It was about $20 and it did the trick. Okay, so I have installed the lower control arm. You just have to hang it by hand. You don't have to tighten it down. Okay, so now you can see I have the control arm hanging. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my spring right here. And since I already have the bushing right here, I'm gonna install this bushing right here with this little notch facing in. And this one right on top. And I'm gonna install like a regular shock. I'll try to give you guys a view of it. Okay, let's see. Okay, so you want to line up those notches, those little bumps that go in there. They're gonna go in here, and you hang it a shunt. So it gives you an extra knot right here, the smaller one, and you're gonna install that up there. Once this is tightened down, this is your locking nut. And now basically what you're gonna do is, this is probably the easiest part. So you're just gonna slide this control arm up. And then you're just gonna install the bolts provided into there. And you're gonna tighten them. Okay, I forgot to mention, you do need to install this bushing right here. I loosened that right now and I just put that in right here. So as you can see, I have it all hanging right now. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and install the spindle. So I kind of skipped ahead a little bit, but I've tightened those bolts out there. I've tightened the tie rod in, I put the nut back on, and I put the, what is it called? The cotter pin. And if you guys are installing this kit, you guys might have a little bit of trouble tightening the shock bottom bolt. So what I did was I got a 14mm, and you should be able to slide it with it opened. You should be able to slide it on two sides like that of the head of the bolt, and then you should be able to fit your 14 on the bottom side and tighten it, and it works for both ways. So you fit this right here. It's a little tricky, but you guys will get it. So as you can see, you get the 14mm in there to hold the bolt. I don't know if you guys can see that. And up here, it says to tighten it to the same diameter as the washer, but that's as close as I want to go because that looks a little too tight already. And you install then you would install the top nut as a locker nut. So all I need left now is to reconnect these ABS wires and then install the sway bar. And then, as you guys can see, everything's tightened but my spring's loose. They ask you to put it all the way to the bottom when you're installing it for easier installation. So if I want to change my height, all I'm going to do is adjust this. So I'll probably decide the height that I want at the end of installing everything. Okay, so a little bit later on, but as you can see, everything is completely assembled. I just need my wheel to be put back on. So I chose 22 churns. So if you go down here, let's see. If you come down here, I chose from the bottom all the way up, I chose 22 turns. And since I'm not going to be drag racing with this truck, I chose 4 clicks on each one of these. So they each click, and I chose 4 of them. One thing you have to be sure of is if you're going to be going on the lowest setting, so see how I'm like halfway, if you're going to be going lower than this, you have to watch out for the control arm hitting these knobs. when I first assembled it, I lowered the truck and the settings were like down here, and I didn't know that a small little test drive was gonna slightly damage the knobs, but they still click and everything, but I have to like feel for it. They don't click like how they're supposed to. Yeah, so just be careful with this, that way you don't damage your compression and rebound knobs, but mine still works, so that's fine. But if the kit says if you're gonna go that low, then you have to make like an incision here. So you cut here, and then you were gonna cut here, I guess, to give you some room. Or what I was thinking, for your future assembly, maybe when I'm assembling this, I could have turned this facing that way. It might have been a little more difficulty accessing, but I think it would have cleared better. But let me go ahead and put this wheel back on and show you the ride height that I chose. Alright, so it's been about a couple 100 miles since I've had the coilovers installed on the truck. That is kind of the height I chose at. It was with the same amount of clicks. Let me go show you the other side. When I initially did it, the truck actually sat a little bit higher. It actually sat a little bit higher than how it is now. But I guess after a couple 100 miles, the spring sat in and the truck actually sits a little bit lower than how I had it initially. I think I'm gonna maybe raise it up about half an inch or an inch, because I do run into a little bit of scraping issues at times. But overall, I'd say these are pretty solid spring overall. What I did have to do is, I'll show you guys real quick. So as you can see there, I did cut a pretty big notch in the lower control arm just to make those knobs fit. But for the most part, that's the only little thing you need to do to make this kit work.